Welcome back to Elizabeth Plants. I'm Elizabeth, and today we are making a moss pole. So if you saw either if you saw my video like getting ready and coming home from a trip or something like that, then you already know that I am making a moss pole for my giant philodendron Salome, which has been renamed, but I couldn't for the life of you remember what that is. But I'm making a giant moss pole for that. So I've made moss poles before on a smaller scale, but I've never made one this big. I've got all of my supplies. So my supplies include these poles. I've tied 3 together with one being longer at the bottom so that it can stake into the ground. And then I wanted more than just one in both height and thickness, but primarily thickness because it's a large plant and these poles are not very thick. So I've already taped this together with just some washi tape. All the links that I use today will be in the description down below, including these poles and everything I say in the future. So we'll just get into it. I'm sorry if I sound kind of weird or a little bit jumbled. I wasn't expecting to have to film this video today, and I got home from my road trip at 4 a.m. last night. Yeah, so these poles, I think they're like a metal of some kind, or plastic maybe. They're not wood. I use wooden dowels when it's a temporary solution because the wood starts to like mold and get weird, but it's cheaper. So that's a nice temporary solution if you don't want to get these. And I also have these moss like sheets. So I've already made a moss pole out of this. So this is just a little bit of what's left from another one, but I've got a couple more of these here. So we're going to be using as many of those as we need. And then I've got some like green chicken wire to wrap everything up. And I've also just got a wad of like used plant tape if we need it, or plant Velcro if we need it. So we're going to jump into it. So like I said, this bottom part of the pole is meant to go in the dirt. So I'm not going to put moss on that. Moss will be going on this half, and I know you can't see it. So I'm going to be doing that. All right, so I've got my pole here, my wire here, scissors to cut the wire, and then my moss is down here next to me. So first what I'm going to do is use the half-used slat of moss on this thinner part up here, just to maybe give it a little bit of a thickness. I want it to be, I don't want it to be ugly. It's in my living room. So this is the sheet of moss. This is what the underside looks like, and this is what the overside looks like. This is a piece that I cut off, and it is a little tall for this spot, so I am actually going to cut it a bit. Awesome. So essentially, it's pretty easy. I just roll it up as tight as I can, and then I wrap it in the wire. So it's not super duper complicated. I'm actually temporarily going to use the plant Velcro, and then I'm going to use the wire at the end. I just want this to hold for right now, because it's hard to hold it down while also prepping your wire. All right, I don't really have a method to this part. I just kind of go for it. So I'm gonna start at one end, wrap it around pretty tightly in this one spot because there's nothing really tying it down. It's wire, and I don't really have like wire tools. And then I am going to just slowly wrap it all the way down. Then when I get to the top, I'm going to wrap it just a little bit more in this spot, cut her off, and then try and just like bend that into the moss a little bit. The moss is kind of sticky. Now I'm going to do the same thing down on these poles, and then I'll probably do another layer up at this top bit. Part is a little bit sticky, as you can see by the paper pulling up, and I'm actually, you know what, usually I would cut this in half and use only half of the thickness, but I want this to be a very thick moss pole, so I'm actually going to use the whole thing. And I'm going to use it here at the bottom and just roll and repeat the process that I did before. And again, you want to make sure that this is as tight as your hands can do it, so that it doesn't just like unravel and fall apart. All right, so I'm just going to repeat the process with the wire. So unlike the top half, because that's an under layer of moss, I am going to run the wire back down again, kind of crossing this current wire, just to make sure it's nice and sturdy. I am running it a little bit more looser than I did the first level though. Then I'm using the same process to kind of tie it off, if you will. Awesome, so this bottom part of the moss pole is done. I'm going to shift it over and do the same thing on this top half. I'm hoping it'll be the perfect length. It is the perfect length, so we're just gonna go for it. It's probably going to be a little bit thicker. I may end up cutting it shorter, but at the moment I'm not going to. This part is causing an issue because of how thin it is in compared to both parts. So this little extra piece that we've got here, I'm going to just roll up in here. And then for now, I'm simply going to tie this down. I'm not going to worry about that being super duper secure. Secure enough is fine. Now I'm going to wrap this bit. At this much rolled up, it's about the same thickness as this bottom half, so I'm going to slice it. By this point you know the drill, but essentially what I'm going to do is wrap the wire. Because I've got two different halves, just to double check, I will be overlapping the wire down here to start, coming up, and then I'll end in the middle. For anybody who's wondering how tight I am doing this, if you can't already see it, there's about, yeah, maybe you can't see, but there's about like an inch to an inch and a half between each time the wire goes around. I don't think that the distance makes that much of a difference, but in case you wanted to know. So I'm at the top now. I'm just going to wrap it around a bunch and go back down more loosely. So I just tuck that in and voila, my moss pole. So that is my moss pole. It's very tall, but so is the plant it's going on. So I'm hoping this will last me a long time of growth, and that it's thick enough. Like I said, this part will be going into the soil. This part will not. I will be tying the plant up to this with plant Velcro. I'll actually insert a clip right here of me putting it in the plant. But while the clip is going, because I did not talk over this clip, or I will not be talking over this clip, is I am simply just pushing it very gently into the soil with this stick, the bottom stick part, because I do not want to ruin any of the roots, but I do need it to be pretty close to the plant. And since I'm not repotting the plant, I need to be careful not to damage the roots too much. This plant has strong roots, but it was just used as a litter box in my absence, so I'm not too sure how it's doing right now. And then when I've got it nice and sturdy in there, I will take Velcro tape and tape it as comfortably as the plant allows to the moss pole. So some of these branches are going to be pretty loose. And that, I mean, not tied directly like up to the moss pole, and that is okay. They are not adjusted to being up that high, and I also don't want them to block the TV where it will be located once it is done draining. These will likely not stay this way. They'll be adjusted with time because I don't want this little guy to be blocked. I'm gonna try and aim him to grow up through here. But that's kind of the way it goes, at least for right now. So that is my process for building a moss pole. I've watched various other tutorials. It's pretty similar to other tutorials out there as well. All of the tools and things that I use will be in the description down below. Let me know what you thought of this video. Do you like the idea of moss poles? Do you prefer just using like a wooden dowel? How do you make moss poles? Do you make it different with a different moss? Let me know. I'd love to branch out and try new things. Maybe even on this channel, I will be trying new moss pole projects later, since this was not actually what this moss was meant to be used for. But that's what it needed to be used for right now. Give me a thumbs up if you like this video, subscribe if you want to see more planty content, and I will see you next time.